Welcome to the Anonymous Andrew podcast. Life and the choices we make, the choices other people make. This is a podcast that explores all things as they relate to dating, romance, and relationships. Why we sometimes ignore or miss the red flags. Red flags like gaslighting, cheating, lying, psychological manipulation, mental illness, addiction, and so much more. Join me each week as we continue my journey into the modern dating world with my weekend rants, anonymous guest dating stories, and experts who share their wisdom so I can help you navigate the dating terrain. If you are new to the show or have been following me from the beginning, hold on tight for the Anonymous Andrew experience. Now on to the show. Greetings, Anonymous Andrew, back with you. Well, really, I'm not really back with you. I'm not here. Why? Well, because this is in between season 1 and season 2, and I'm not really here. Okay, I know it's a strange concept. I am taking a break between seasons, but in the continuation of trying to build momentum of this podcast and not leaving a big gap in like season 1 and season 2, which some podcasters can do. They have such a following that people will actually wait and say, oh, you're gone for a month? Okay, I'll wait. Anyway, I didn't do that. I want you to have something to listen to. I recorded this episode a little bit, I don't know, back a month or two ago. This is the third episode in a trilogy I did with Marilyn Penny. Go look at episode number 50, my Akashic Records, and number 53, my Property Cleansing. This episode is called A Soul Realignment Reading, where Marilyn comes in and does some woo-woo to my soul. Yes, I said woo-woo. Anyway, enjoy this episode while I'm taking a break, and we'll talk to you real soon. I'll be back. Greetings, Anonymous Andrew podcast. Life and the choices we make. And today I have, for the third time, and it is my pleasure to bring back to you Marilyn Penny. Hello, Marilyn.
Hi, Andrew. It's great to be back.
Great. Yeah. Well, and welcome back. And thank you. So let's just give the audience a quick recap. Marilyn came on. Boy, I should have looked up the episode. I could put it in the show notes.
It's episode 50, wasn't it?
Oh, very good. Yes, you're correct. Okay. Wow. Okay. My guests remember my episodes. Episode 50.
Exciting.
Marilyn came on and she did a relationship reading. So Marilyn, tell us what you do.
Well, I do a number of things. I am a spiritual life coach. I'm a soul realignment practitioner, and I'm also a relationship coach. So I use the Akashic Records essentially to look into your record or your soul's, all your soul's choices and consequences. And I find the blocks, all the negative stuff, not all the negative stuff, the things that you're ready to release. And I find those and I clear them together. We work together and I clear them for you so that you can move on and make new choices and get some of that stuff out of the way, that gunk out of the way.
We talked about gunk.
Spiritual gunk.
And my soul has gunk. I have to find a way to monopolize that or monetize that or something because it's a great phrase. Briefly tell the audience, because I know and they can go back and listen, but what is an Akashic record?
So the Akashic Records it's like the internet for our soul. So it stores all of the choices and consequences that we have experienced since we were created as a soul. So a lot of those choices and consequences were not great for us. Those choices we made, maybe not the right things for our souls. So that made us experience negative consequences. And if those things get stuck in our record, they carry with us through each incarnation. So if you believe in past lives, we've been around the block a number of times, you will bring those negative patterns with you again and experience them over and over. So if you think you're in a relationship and you're in another relationship and you're like, there's a lot of the same things going on here. Why is this happening? It's because you've sort of clicked into a pattern and you're starting to repeat that. So that I interrupt the pattern for you.
Yeah.
I help.
So basically, different face, same person, or same story. Yeah.
Right. Different person, same relationship.
And exactly, and that's you just described my pattern of behavior, dating, finding that desperate woman. Maybe desperate is not the word. The woman that needs rescuing, or
you have Superman syndrome.
Superman syndrome, and I this is amazing to myself, and the audience probably doesn't understand how amazing this is. But I've been single now for, by the time they hear this, it'll be almost 1 year, and that's just, for me, it's almost like I'm an alcoholic in recovery. I have 8 years sobriety. I feel like I'm recovering from relationships, and I have 1 year sober from relationships. It's almost like a milestone. So, okay, then we did a second episode, and that, I think, was episode 53. And that one we did a property clearing, which what explain to them what that was quickly. So
that's a property energy clearing. So that just pulls out any negative energies that have gotten stuck because you lived with your ex in your place. That means there's some, some juju in there that you don't want hanging around anymore. So I just pulled that out and shut down any of those openings, energetic portaways that cause them to come and go. It just stabilizes the energy of your space.
And I recently listened to that episode to prepare for this one, and we found a portal in my bedroom in the closet. We spoke about that. There was a portal that my cat actually found. So go back and listen to episode 53. It was good. And I have to tell you that since that episode, since the breakup and leading up to meeting you and the property clearing, even though this is my home and I've been comfortable, it's been more relaxing here. And I'm having when I come home, there's zero anxiety anymore. So okay. So tonight, tell the audience what we're doing for our third and final.
Well, who knows, right? There may be many more to come.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I'm open to that. But in this series, yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to do soul realignment reading, which is sort of my signature reading. And that is sort of all encompassing. It pulls out all the blocks that your soul is ready to release in a general way. However, I do ask for an intention, and we talked a little bit about that. And your intention is around the reading is that we want to really dig into relationships. We want to figure out what is blocking you, what is causing these patterns. So that's ultimately your intention. Some other things might come out of it. But again, it's only what your soul's ready to release. And your soul was very open, I might add. And we have some great stuff for you.
Good. Well, I do know that, like we spoke before, I have this pattern. It's maybe subconscious or it's just genetic or whatever. But if it's originating from the soul, I am ready for this. I need this. So, all right, let's begin. It's all yours.
Let's begin. All right. So I'm going to just first touch on your divine gifts, which we've talked about in the other reading. I just want to, touch on them quickly so you have those in mind, because as we go through some of the blocks, the way that you present you can use your gifts in order to really live your divinity, essentially. That's what we're trying to do, is use those gifts. So the communication energy that you have makes a lot of sense for you. So it's important for you to have an audience. It's important for you to be your authentic self. So in uncovering and releasing blocks, that's going to help you get closer to your authentic self, and also to draw to you a partner who is also authentic, right? That's important because you're going to attract who you are. not necessarily what you want. Okay. So you may be highly verbal and you work things out in by talking to yourself. You need a good listener. So that's to keep in mind. Somebody you want to have in your life are people who will listen to you and let you work things out, not people who want to just solve for you or tell you what to do. You are, and your next energy is divine power. So you're very independent. You like, although you like to be in relationship, you are an independent person. So you like doing what you want to do. So you really have to find that autonomy within a partnership as
Yeah.
well, right? So you want to have a little bit of both. You want to have your own things, but then you want to co-create together. So that's really important for you. And you're a good manifester. You're also psychic and energetically sensitive. So when you're with someone, you actually know in your body if you feel good when you're with that person, or if that person leaves and you're exhausted, that's telling you that that person is draining your energy or you're taking on their energy. So there are a lot of things that I know we say, love is blind, or, you don't care. I'm into that person and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And you can say that so many times until the relationship breaks down because you've missed some of these cues along the way. So
Which
it's
I
good
did.
to be aware. Yeah, you want to be aware of these things. And it's okay. Everybody does it, right? So but these are just some things to keep in mind. I also check to see how connected you are to your higher self. And the subconscious connection to higher self means that you're getting those cues, those little intuitive hits when you're walking or you're doing dishes or housework or something. So you're 48% connected. So that means that you may not be trusting or you may not be listening. Yeah, right. So you may not be open to receiving those random hits. So try to be more open and try to expand that, because intuition is a muscle. We can work with it and we can really get those little messages. Those are the universe or your guides or angels telling you things. So be aware of that. And then consciously connected, that's when you actually maybe ask cards or you write a note before you go to sleep and say, I need an answer to this, or you ask God, you pray, whatever it is that you believe in, you are actually asking for guidance directly, and you are 22% connected there. So that's a lot for you to do with trust. I think you don't always trust those answers that you're getting, right? So, and sometimes it's hard. Like if you like somebody, particularly in a relationship, you like them, but then you're getting that that feeling, you kind of ignore it because you're like, no, 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 it's okay. I've done
Hmm.
it. I've dated and said, oh, I think I could be into this one, and you know so we all do it. Your
I'm
primary,
to
sorry,
the
go
just
ahead.
to the audience. I'm making faces because she's absolutely right. So go ahead.
um, and then your primary life lesson that we talked about briefly before is healing. So you are on a healing journey in this lifetime, because in previous lifetimes you have been on healing journeys there too, and you just haven't finished. And it's okay. We're never finished. We can't get it wrong. Abraham Hicks tells us that all the time. Um, so this is a good step for you to take in your healing journey. Okay. So the big portion of the reading is it's a series of stories. So there are past lifetime stories and current lifetime stories, and there are blocks in both of them. The past lifetime stories I actually channel. So I find out what the blocks are, and then I create a story for you. And it will be it's very practical. I'm a very practical person. I don't do the Egypt in the 18th century BC or whatever. I just tell you a story, and then we're going to see how that story has repeated for you and how the blocks are repeating for you, and then we clear the blocks. Okay,
Great.
great. Okay, are you ready?
I am.
Okay. So
I
I'll
am
just read
so
it
ready.
through. I'll just read it through, and then you can sort of tell me what resonates, and then we'll just chat about the blocks and we'll go to the next one. Okay.
Okay.
And so 8 lifetimes ago, you were female. In this lifetime, you did not get along with your parents. You were a rebellious teen, running away several times. Finally, at the age of 16, you met a boy and you both hitched a ride out of town. Um, and you were in that anywhere but here mode, right? Just get me out of here. Somewhere along the line, the boy ditched you and you met a group of women who offered you a job as a dancer. Initially, it was modest dancing, and you were treated well and trained, kind of like that. I got the image of page dancing, like fun in a bar, and people are, it's just entertainment. Um, so, and it was kind of fancy bars and parties, and you were kind of programmed. You were convinced that this was a great way to live and earn a living, and so you sort of go through what we call soul memory programmed. So you may resonate with that in terms of getting together with people and then feeling like that's the right thing for you. You're sort of programmed in that way. So eventually you were moved into more exotic dancing. And this was because you turned 18, you were of age. And then private dancing. And then that's when the sexual activity came in. And that was when it became uncomfortable for you. But again, it was a living and you were convinced that this was right. There's one particular client who treated you well and promised you a job and an opportunity to leave this kind of work because essentially you were a prostitute. Let's be real. So this client came in often, and you started to kind of pressure him. So when am I getting out of here? What have you got for me? Like I have to get out of this life. So he got fed up with that, and he placed a negative intention of confusion. So he would kind of mess with you and say, oh yeah, it's coming, just be patient, whatever. And then it would just go on and on and on. And there'd be more delays. So you were asked to go to his house and dance at a private party, which you thought was this next step, and this was so exciting, and it was just more of the same. So you kind of quit and you left a few times and tried to do other things, but nothing was panning out, and you just kept coming back. So you just kept repeating that pattern, coming back. You didn't want to go back home to your family, even though it might have been an option, because you felt ashamed of what you had done and you had left, and that was it. Didn't want to go home with your tail between your legs. So you had a really good personality. You developed amazing dancing skills. So you could have tried to do something different, but you kept hoping to connect with this particular man, that he was going to save you, right? He was going to do that for you. It's triggered what we call memory highlighted and also soul memory clouded. So there's a lot of soul memory issues. So remember that, even though you've got memory issues, because if you have memory issues, these are some of the root causes of those, okay? You continue to make choices that cause you trauma, and you're unsure how to make a change or move forward. So you continued on this path throughout this lifetime with little change, eventually retiring due to, just becoming too old to do that stuff anymore. And you lived in solitude, okay, for the rest of that life. The man, this client, his soul stayed attached to you, running a program of victimization in your third chakra, mental body. Okay.
Okay.
So that's an interesting story. And I didn't mention, although I think, when you incarnate, we have both energies, male, female. So you can actually incarnate as a male or
female.
Yeah. I figure your audience would know that too. So is there anything in that story that jumps out for you?
Well, I guess they call this the elephant in the room. Is it a coincidence? All right, so you described a life where I was a female and started off dancing and I worked my way up to prostitution. Is there any coincidence that my last relationship was with a woman who started off dancing and became a prostitute?
Oh, right. You told me a little bit, but I don't remember the whole idea. Oh, I guess that kind of fits, doesn't it? Okay.
I'm just pointing out the elephant in the room. This is why this podcast was started, was I was caught up in this relationship and everything was peachy keen until it wasn't. And you were talking about intuition before. My intuition's radar started going off. Something's not right. Something's not right. One day, her wallet opened up on the table here, the coffee table, and almost 200 or 300 singles fell out. And I asked her what all that money came from.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So she never admitted that she was dancing, but I've later found out that she was dancing at a gentleman's club. And then as the story goes, I don't want to bore the audience because it's all about season one, but later on I found out that she was prostituting. So, wow, my first life, you said it was eight lives
This
ago?
was 8 lifetimes ago. So these are the lifetimes that are coming out for you. These are the ones that you need to
So
talk about.
you can you make heads or tails of how I ended up on the other end of that, being the male dating a female who lived my lifestyle in my first life?
Well, that's what happens with these past lives, is it all comes down in different ways. So that's how you're experiencing that situation from the other
It,
side of it, even though it's a little bit different, right? It's not a relationship. You're not in a relationship
in the
with
first life, right?
someone who's doing that, but you're in that realm. Like there's
But
something to do with that realm that has attracted you.
could it be why I attracted that type of woman?
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So the soul memory issues, and there's going to be more of these. It's interesting because of some of your other, like that programming. And you just said to me before we started that your father was very much connected to your mother. And then after she passed, he married again. It's like that's an aspect of programming. It's like you feel like you have to be with someone. It's that need versus want situation, right? So we just want to repair and release that so that you can be more free to be in a relationship because you want to, not because you need it. Because then you're just going to grab the first person that comes along instead of being more choosy. I mean, you deserve the best for you. So it's okay to be choosy. It's okay to pass.
And that's
Right?
what my pattern has been. One
Right.
relationship would end, and I would not even date 15 women and pick one. I would just pick the next one that I started dating, and somehow and not just once or twice, but this is a pattern for 10, 15 years. So, or
Right.
longer.
Well, and we do have that feeling of, oh, somebody wants us, somebody likes us. Oh, that's great. And and kind of a lot of us online daters have been burned that way and been ghosted and been, left and blocked and, all those terrible things that people do to each other. But it's important, and this getting into the heart of this is going to release some of that stuff so that you're not feeling so much that way anymore. The negative intention of confusion is important too, because any of these people that you've been in relationships with quite likely have placed that negative intention of confusion on you. So I like you, I don't like you, I love you, I don't love you.
Mm-hmm. Oh
You're
my
good looking,
God.
you're not good looking,
Oh my God. Yes.
right.
Exactly what
So,
happened. Oh my God.
right.
Okay.
So yeah, good. So then we get rid of that, right? And the high memory highlighted, I think, in other aspects of your life too, making choices that cause you trauma and then keep going back and making those same choices again, right? So that's important to know and to clear. Soul memory clouded makes you unsure of your choices. You don't know at times. You're getting confused and you're disillusioned. So you don't know what choice to make. Right. So that's some other things that we can do. And victimization. I mean, you may feel like a victim in your third chakra, which is where your confidence is, where your self-esteem is, right? You feel like a victim and you don't want to feel like that.
Well, and I did. When this relationship ended, I felt very much like a victim until I started the podcast, talked to my therapist, sponsor, all support groups, and of course, I shifted my mindset, thinking I'm not a victim. So yeah, I tried to get out of that mindset, but
right. And consciously you do, but sometimes I tell people it's like pushing a boulder up a hill. Like you're
yeah,
trying to
oh
get
yeah,
past it, but it's still, you get every once in a while you'll get triggered and you can fall back in. When we go and find out where it came from, then we can pull it out and free it up. Right.
where did I find you?
A pod match.
because you're spot on. It's
Okay, good. Good. Yeah. And I think you're really going to find this helpful. I'm so excited about this because this is great. Okay. So the next story, 7 lifetimes ago, you were male in this story. This is interesting. I can't wait to hear about this one because it's cool. In this lifetime, you met and married a very strong woman. Initially, you felt that you were equals. However, her personality was quite overpowering. You took vows of poverty, suffering, and sacrifice when you married her, after which she became very demanding. You tried your best to make her happy, but there was never enough for her. You worked more and more, finding that she would just spend everything you brought in anyway. You had twin boys together, and she was not a happy pregnant woman or a happy mother. There was lots of help for her, and you found it much more content for yourself to spend less and less time at home and more time at bars, just hanging around meeting people. So I can see you nodding and okay. So you eventually met a woman with whom you had an instant connection. You created a soulmate contract. She shared details of her abusive marriage with you. You initiated a healing contract with her, spending all the time you could listening to her and helping her out. You did not share that you were married or that you were a father. This triggered soul memory added. So you're sort of being someone who you're not really. You pretended to be someone you weren't. You were sure at the time that she wouldn't leave her husband as he was kind of sickly and she had kids and all the rest of it. So you made up a story that you were from another town and would visit often on business. The connection soon became an affair that was fiery and also very risky because she didn't want to get caught, right? Your wife became more demanding, wanting you home to help, and your now mistress wanted to see you more often. And when she told you that she would leave her husband to be with you, you had to tell her the truth. So the jig was up. This escalated into a huge turmoil and her threatening to go to your wife. You split up for a while and you looked over your shoulder for a long time, keeping your head down, working, doing your best. Eventually, though, the connection was so strong that you came back together and the whole on again, off again continued throughout that life. So the mistress's soul stayed attached, running a program of chaos. What a surprise. In your fourth chakra emotional body. We're getting a big eye roll from Andrew here. Big eye roll.
Again, you're spot on. I can make that. There's so many connections I could make. Go ahead.
No, tell me. What jumps out?
The very beginning where you said she was demanding and everything had to be her way. When I first met her, it was all about, she was from a different culture. She was Latina and with different culture. And I didn't know how their culture, so she trained me how you treat a Latin woman in a Latin, because that's all she knew, because she was, even though she lived there for 25 years and emigrated here at 25 and then lived here for 25 years and married a Latino, so I was the first American she dated. So it wasn't a matter of like, we'll meet in the middle. She wanted to train me on how to treat a Latina woman. And she thought she was beautiful and she thought she was a queen. So anyway, all that stuff in the beginning resonated with me. And then the whole mistress, she had an ex-husband that she was living with.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
Yeah. And you mentioned something about that. So again, very parallel stories going on here.
Now, what about your previous relationships? What about your wife? Was she like that at all too? Did you have other relationships that were with women that were demanding?
Yes. Oh, wow. See, yeah, first of all, my first marriage was at 25. And we were both alcoholics, and that's why the marriage ended. So I don't, no, she wasn't demanding. But yes, let's stick, I guess, with the recent relationships. The one before
poverty, I was just thinking poverty, suffering, and sacrifice. That kind of sounds like that could have been your other relationship too, like your actual marriage.
Well, we were both professionals. She was a nurse and I was a professional.
Well, sometimes poverty means that the money comes in, but it goes out just as faster.
Definitely. Yeah. We never bought a house. We filed bankruptcy. Oh, that's funny. We filed bankruptcy when we divorced. That's funny. Yeah, yeah. What's worse than bankruptcy is, I mean, poverty is bankruptcy. Oh my God. Oh my God.
It's either not being able to make it or making it, but then not being able to keep it. That's a big vow of poverty. So those are things that we need to break. Suffering, obviously, when you give yourself a vow of suffering, or when you've had experienced a vow of suffering in a past life, just means that you make things harder for yourself, or you make choices that make you suffer. And you're like, why do I do this? Why am I doing this to myself? It's because in a past life, you took a vow that things were going to be tough, and you just drag that along with you until we go in and pull it out. And again, a lot of people consciously move past these things, and you can do it. It's absolutely possible, but it's still sitting in your energetic body. And that's why I do this kind of, right? The soulmate contract, clearly had a soulmate contract with this last relationship. That was definitely a soulmate contract, because those are, in this work, soulmate isn't fun and nice and cute. Can be very fiery. It can be very toxic. It means that you have a bond to be together regardless of how tumultuous it is.
Yeah, that would explain the relationship before my last one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And soul memory added, I think, makes a lot of sense, because you're kind of being someone who you're not. So you're not being your authentic self. So you sort of lose track of that, and you try to be that person that your partner wants you to be. But that's
People
not really.
pleasing.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's
100%.
me. That's
Yeah.
me.
And chaos in your fourth chakra is something you don't want. You don't want people causing you chaos or triggering the chaos in your fourth chakra, right? So that's your heart. You don't want that. Okay. All right. So next story. Let's see how this one lands. This one's interesting.
I can only imagine. Go ahead.
This is the last past lifetime story, and then I have a few present lifetime stories for you.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So 6 lifetimes ago, you were male. In this lifetime, you had a younger sister with whom you had a special connection. She was quite shy and reserved, but she was beautiful, so she was desired by many men. This caused you to initiate a protection contract with her. You were going to see that she would marry a good and honest man, so you were going to, take care of her that way. Unfortunately, your family came on hard times with the business failing, and it was imminent that your sister be given to the owner of a competitive company, which would save your family's business and fortune. He was older and not a good man, so you were at first strongly opposed to the union. You ended up having to relent, as even your sister said that she would be fine. You made a soul level bargain with her, that you would keep quiet if she told you everything and allowed you to stay close to continue to protect her. The bargain carried the energy of worry, because you weren't confident that this guy was going to be a stand-up, good husband. So it took quite a long time for your sister to come to you and share that he beat her and forced himself on her often. She had 3 children in only 5 years, and you thought because of her outward happiness with the children that she was okay. She broke down and told you that she feared for her life and for her kids as he became more and more aggressive. One night you showed up at her house and found him in a rage, waving a gun around. So you fought with him, you turned the gun on him, and you killed him, hoping this would be a whole self-defense thing. It triggered what we call negative unjust karma with this man. So you were found guilty. However, there was some compassionate ground, so you were allowed to join the army instead. Okay. Instead of going to prison. Here you created what we call an etheric implant with the energy of anger. So this is how you managed to survive the remainder of this lifetime, by being tough and carrying the rage you felt towards this man and how he treated your sister. Okay, so the etheric implant is like a piece of software running in your 5th chakra mental body. So in expressing yourself, there is some anger there. The negative unjust karma that we talked about between him and the man, it caused obstruction. So it literally blocked you from having the life that you wanted to choose for you. And negative unjust karma means that it's done. It played out for that soul. So he let it go, but you have not let it go. You carry it around.
I am going to plead the fifth on this one.
Okay.
Anonymous Andrew from day one has said he will always be open and honest and vulnerable, but there are some secrets I must maintain. So
Okay.
I will say that that story does resonate with me, but
Okay.
I'm not either the word would be comfortable or nor should I talk about it. So
Okay.
let's say that you were not all of it. I didn't kill anyone, so
Okay.
we can relax on that part. Um,
Well, that's okay. We can touch on a couple of the blocks and just see how those are repeating. So that's really the important part is the protection contract. So if you have
yeah,
had a tendency to want to protect people, that takes your energy, and it also it prevents that person you're protecting from getting their own energy, because and you may do this with children. People tend to do that, protecting their children, but when they become adults or they become of age, you don't need to do that anymore. So I've had to release a lot of protection contracts for particularly mothers overseeing their children, and then their children are on their own and off and going, but they're still holding on to them. They're still holding on with protection.
I will say this much real quickly. I have three younger sisters now,
Mhm.
and you did mention firearms. There are firearms in my story, but
Mm.
that's all I'm going to say.
Okay. Okay. But you are protective of your sister. Is that right?
Yes. As
Okay.
a matter of fact, I can say this: there was my sister's second husband was abusive and often would beat on her. So, yeah, you did hit the mark on
There's
quite a few of those things, but I'm just not.
there's some
I
stuff.
can't talk about them.
Oh no, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Okay. And then just the other thing is a soul level bargain, which is very interesting because particularly in relationships, you give up something to get something. So you may give up, like we talked about, you give up a piece of yourself in order to receive someone's love. So you're bargaining instead of negotiating, like in a relationship, a healthy negotiation. You are literally giving up. Like with this previous relationship, you said she was demanding you had to do everything her way. So you're like, okay, we'll do everything her way because you'll love me then. So that's a bargain. It's a soul level bargain that you need to stop doing, essentially,
Okay.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
So we release that. Um, and then having unjustified karma with someone means that if you feel like you've hurt someone, they release it, they let it go, but you kind of carry it around. Do you feel that guilt or worry, or did I say the wrong thing? Did I do the wrong thing? It's my fault. Kind of carry it around, and the other person has long dropped it.
Oh boy. Yeah. I'm gonna say yes. I can't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's all
Okay.
I'm gonna say. Yes.
That's okay. And some of these things, when I do a session, it's a lot of information. So it does take time to settle and process. So you may replay this down the road, a few
Which I
days or
will.
whatever, and more things will come to you. An etheric implant, having that energy of anger, that just means that sometimes you may just feel that it's bubbling up and you want it, and you've got that kind of trigger going that you get angry. So
Yeah.
that's just releasing that will allow you then, because obviously you're not an angry person, all that, but there may be some anger that bubbles in you. Sometimes you get triggered and you don't know where it's coming from. And that's
I,
coming from this. You get surviving through something
I,
by
I'm
using.
I'm not an angry person today, and that's a lot to do with my sobriety and a lot of the work that I've done on myself over the past 8 to 10 years. But
Right.
there was a time in my life that I was not the the man that you see in front of you now. And by the way, you had mentioned that if I listen back to this, some memory, everything you said resonated with me, but I'm just choosing not to talk about it. That's all. So,
Yeah. No, no, no.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Fine. Okay. Okay, great. Now, the last part of the reading there are 4 present life stories. And of course, I don't have to create the story because you lived it, because these are
Mm-hmm.
present So I just give you the age, and we did this in your relationship reading. I just give you the age and the dates, and you
Okay.
tell me what was significant. Okay. So
Okay.
the first one's age 12, 72, 73. Was there anything significant going on then?
Other than puberty?
Other than just being a 12-year-old?
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
uh, nothing's jumping out, but I'm going to make a quick disclaimer here. I'm one of those people at this age that a lot of my childhood is fuzzy. And I don't know if it's the alcohol of 30 years erasing stuff, or things happened that what is it when your brain blocks that so you don't relive it or something? That there's a theory that,
Well, also, like we talked about, you have a lot of soul memory issues that have come up in past lives.
yeah,
So that is not surprising that you don't remember some of those details. So they may come to you, and you may, over the course of days and as you're working through homework too, start to remember some things. So it's not critical that we know exactly. I just asked to see if anything significant comes up. There's God spark damage showing up. So that connection that you have to life force energy was impacted at that time for whatever reason. Now, a traumatic thing for a 50-year-old is different than a traumatic thing for a 12-year-old. So it could have
correct.
been anything, right? It could have been something very small. There's a negative thought form of conditionality. So you were, even at that young age, maybe trying to be the right person for your parents or your teachers, or they won't accept me or like me, or your friends, or the schoolyard, the girls in the schoolyard. I have to be a certain way for me to be liked. I mean, that could have started way back then. There's an open portalway to past lives. So your past life blocks and stuff are already starting to come in at age 12, like you're starting to repeat stuff. And also negative astral travel, which means that between the third and fourth dimensional intersection, processing the day's events was hard for you, even at that young age. So you may have had some sleep issues. You may have had some anxieties. I don't know, like you have to kind of think about that there may have been some early anxieties coming up about you, or maybe you were tall for your age, or maybe, anything like that was going on that made you struggle with your sleep and your energy and all that stuff.
Nothing's jumping out at me at that age, but
Okay.
I do have trouble sleeping at this age.
Okay. All right. So that should help. That should help with that. So we'll clear all those away. The next one's age 31, 1991, 92.
Well, and I remember discussing this
We've done this in another reading, haven't we?
yeah, that's when
Yeah.
I got divorced. So,
Okay.
from my first marriage, and I should say first and only marriage. There was a
Okay.
second marriage that was a civil in New York State. If you live together for more than 10 years, you become common law. So, but we were never officially married. But my first wife and I divorced in 1992, which would be at my age 32.
So that was 30, yeah, sort of 31, 32. So that would have been significant time. So what's coming up there are blocks in your second, your fifth, and your sixth chakra. So your second chakra, that's your sacral, that's your financial energy, that's your sexual energy, that's your creative energy, all blocked. Your fifth chakra is your throat, and your sixth is your intuition. So there was probably a lot of stuff going on at that time that was causing you some stuff.
Yeah. Well, the divorce, the bankruptcy, and my alcoholism and drug use skyrocketed right after that divorce for about 2 years. And then I entered recovery for the first time. So a lot went on between 31 and 33, 34. It was a very tumultuous time in my life.
Okay. So we're going to let go of these blocks from age 31. Okay. So there's an independent earthbound soul with the energy of chaos. So that makes sense. There's a disruptive earthbound soul. So a disruptive earthbound soul will attach when you are running a low vibration, and they're going to come in and mess with you and cause confusion and
Oh yeah.
sleep issues and all that kind of stuff, right? An independent negative thought form which is a thought form you would have subscribed to, of disempowerment in your second chakra. So you must have felt some disempowerment, obviously, in your finances and in your creativity and all of that. There's a compassionate connection showing up, which means that you may have been trying to help someone. It could have even been your ex, and you just were worried about her or someone else in your life at that time, and you're still sort of worried about them subconsciously, and you haven't let that go from that time.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And then an open portal to astrals, which means you were, because you didn't like what was going on in reality, you were diving into, like you said, the alcohol, maybe gaming. Some people shop, some people, do all kinds of things, overeat, when they're struggling with reality, what's actually going on. So that's something we close. Right.
And again, there are other things that, as you're doing this, the memory is, I'm remembering things, but again, I'm reluctant to talk about it. So
and we don't want to dwell on the stuff. You just sort of you recognize it, you acknowledge the blocks, and you say, okay, I'm done. And then we get the homework and we work on it. The next one's age 43, 2003, 2004. Just a couple of things. So I don't know if there's anything that you would have remembered from that in particular. Care to share, or are we pleading the fifth?
I think I could share. I think I could share this one. I had, oh God, and I know she listens to this podcast. My high school sweetheart. Actually, I did an episode, although I didn't identify her. I had a high school sweetheart, and she was 2 years younger than me, and I had gone off to college, and we were dating in high school. But I went off to college, and college life took me off in a different direction, and I kind of left her behind and broke her heart. We reconnected, and we reconnected 2 months before 9/11. So that would have been 2001, yeah. And I don't want to say too much to kind of want to.
Okay.
Well, her husband at the time, let's just say, was involved in 9/11 rescuing. Let's just say he was part of that. Really? They ended up. Oh God, I have to be careful how I talk here.
Oh no, that's okay. You don't have to say anymore.
Okay, but she and I reconnected, and just as friends. And then 9/11 happened, and then of course she was involved with her husband, and she did lose a family member. And then about 2 years later, when the dust settled for them and the world, we connected and became romantic. So that would have been around 2003, 2004.
Isn't that interesting? Because isn't that in the story, the soulmate contract, that you kind of met and then you reconnected and on again, off again? Interesting. Yep. Interesting. Okay, so at age 43, which is, I don't know how this plays out, but there's an independent earthbound soul with the energy of abstinence in that 2003, 2004. So maybe you were coming out of that when you reconnected with her. I don't know. That's something you might want to think about. I'm not sure. And there are two of those compassionate connections. So 2 people. You had your kids by then, right? So
yes,
maybe something. Yeah, so maybe something going on with them. So It just, any of these kind of connections are things that we need to release because they're taking your energy, right? Because your boys are grown up now and they're good. You have grandbabies now and all
Yep.
that. So yeah. So these are good things to release. And the last one, of course, age 61. Here we are, 2021, 2022. So we don't want to dwell on that because we all know what happened.
Yeah.
So let me just tell you the blocks. So there are blocks in your third chakra and your fourth. So your solar plexus, your self-esteem, your self-confidence, and also your heart. There's a block in your heart, right? Because that makes sense. There's soul memory loss. So this is the last of you had all the soul memory issues that we have in this work. So these are going to be so good for us to repair because soul memory loss means forgetting who you are. So in that relationship, you'd forgotten who you were, and you also forgot your understanding of choices and consequences. If I make a negative choice for myself, I'm going to have a negative consequence. You threw all that out the window and said, I don't care. Right? So we just want to make sure that we fix that for next time. There's a disruptive earthbound soul. There's a negative thought form of anxiety that you created because you went through a lot of anxiety. There's an independent negative thought form of desire in chakra 4. So that desiring that real love in chakra 4 and experiencing that after. And then an open portal way to subconscious, which I think we've talked about before. That's that repeating, that ruminating, that going over stuff. And like you say, it's not fun to relive. I'm going through depression for me. I don't like talking about it. So I get it. Like we want to move on. We want to know that we learned lessons and we experienced, but we want to release it somehow. It's not great to just keep talking about it. You want to find a way to release it. So these are some of the things that we're going to pull out of that story to let it go for you.
And I think I should bring the audience in on this. But before we recorded, I told you that in doing this podcast and doing over 60 episodes about this relationship, it has taken a toll on me as because I thought it would be therapeutic to get it out and research why I stayed in this toxic relationship and blah, 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 blah. It is actually has a reverse effect on me too, where I'm burnt out, not from the podcast, but from talking about this past relationship. So, which is why I'm shifting gears in season 2. We're going to completely leave that relationship in the past. That was season 1. Season 2 is going to be about dating. So, but yeah, so I think what you were talking about is burnout, and this whole past year has been, while I stayed single and tried to heal, there's been a lot of emotional, I'm learning how to be single again, learning how to be in my own skin again. I don't know if I was ever comfortable in my own skin, but yes, everything you just said. So
right, and and I talk about finding love again in my late 50s, and I found love again. And sometimes people are, finding love for the first time. And I think for me, it might be the first time. I was married for 25 years, but I don't know that I was ever really in love, like really head over heels in love. I don't think I had that.
Yeah, so I can look back at the 20 something relationship that I've been in since my marriage, and I even though I may have said I love you to each one of those women, even this last woman, we discovered that I may have been in love with her, but really I was in love with the potential version of her, because whatever. So
you're in love with the idea of being in love, because people fantasize the idea of love. Yeah. So, and that's a whole topic for a podcast. I got to tell you. So there's lots of things you can talk about that sort of moves you on and sort of say, okay, now I've established that I have experienced unhealthy relationships multiple times. Now I want to do it differently. So this is a great way to release a lot of stuff so that you can do that.
And I have to do it differently this time. So I cannot go through another relationship like the last one or any of the previous ones. I don't have it in me. So yeah, I
Well,
need to.
and when you find that person and things are going along, you come to me and I will do a relationship reading for the two of you together, and we'll release some stuff and
Deal.
smooth the way for that relationship.
Absolutely.
Okay,
All
good.
right.
Well, we're done unless you have any questions.
No, but I would like to say to the audience that what Marilyn is, what her field is a spiritual coach, Akashic records, and the audience knows that I dabble in tarot cards. This is all. A lot of people would look at it as hocus pocus, and I think you and I talked about this on our first time. Some people just don't believe in it. It's real, because everything Marilyn just spoke about, even including all the past lives, and I mean, seriously, you did know the whole story about my relationship, and yet my first past life that you read was all about prostitution, and so I mean, it's real. What I'm saying is that
these are real things that you're repeating. These are real patterns that you need to let go of, and that's why we're able to do stuff like this. So why not use it? Why not?
Exactly.
Nothing to lose except old blocks, right?
Everything you said, even the parts that I chose not to talk about, you were spot on, except for the part that I didn't kill somebody. But
okay, good.
But everything else, unbelievable stuff. So I would like just to let people know that if they would like a reading from Marilyn, I still tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, sure. So my website is lifeguidecoaching.ca. So you can reach me on there. I'm on Instagram at Lifeguide Coaching. And if you would like to find love again, you can go and download a free guide that I created at lifeguidecoaching.ca/relationships.
Great. All right. Marilyn, my intuition tells me that we will be doing this again.
Sure.
Marilyn and I have stayed in touch in between recordings, and she has become a new friend of mine. So, I have nothing but praise and thanks, and I'm grateful for you. There was a reason we met. So thank you,
Absolutely.
Podmatch, right?
No, it's like the dating site for podcasts.
Yeah. But for the people that are listening, Podmatch is one of these venues where they match podcasters and guests, and vice versa. So we both belong to that little club. So, okay, Marilyn, thank you again. I'm really blown away about how this went. I did not expect any of that. I believe in what you do, but wow, I'm now I'm going to edit this, and then I have to listen to it again, and then I'm going to listen to it in the car on the way to work tomorrow, and it's going to really sink in. You're fantastic. You really are. You're the real deal. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrew. I was happy to be here.
All right. We'll talk to you again soon. As they say, that's a wrap. Okay, so that was the third episode in the trilogy that I've done with Marilyn Penny. I have not had any guests come back and do a repeat. I've invited several guests to come back, and I do have some that'll come back in season 2 and hopefully season 3. But Marilyn was the first and only guest to come back, not once, not twice, but 3 times in one season. And I'll tell you why quickly. I'm still struggling, folks. It's almost a year now since the breakup, and I cannot get this woman out of my head. Okay, and that's a problem. I've been to therapy. I go to my groups, several different support groups, and of course, to my meditation and all sorts of other stuff, and I'm lost. Marilyn has stepped up, and she has sensed that, and she's working with me behind the scenes. These just weren't recorded and I throw them up there for you. She's actually we're staying in touch. We're connecting during the week. She's supporting me. And I really want to give a shout out to Marilyn. If you need any help in spiritual growth and support, please contact Marilyn. She's the real deal. As always, her information will be in the show notes. So, ladies and gentlemen and people of all genders, thank you for your support. Please stop and leave me a review. Send me feedback. Instagram, Anonymous Andrew Podcast. And I am now on TikTok, Anonymous Andrew Podcast. So, if you need to make a choice, if you have to make a choice, please choose wisely. Until next time.